I'm David. You get two MongoDB Perl talks for the price of one right after the other. Yep. I'm a staff engineer at MongoDB. I maintain the Perl driver, and for a little brief time I maintained the C++ driver, so that last talk was kind of cool. 3 years ago I gave a talk right there, I think, called Juggling Chainsaws. And in that talk, I made the point that people had a lot of negative impressions of Perl the same way they have a lot of negative impressions of MongoDB. So MongoDB being Snapchat for databases and Perl being executable line noise. But I also made the point that people like both of these for very much the same reason, that both of these are sort of this Swiss Army chainsaw that has a lot of manipulexity and whip up to the kind of thing that people like to get their jobs done quickly. But as we all know, the problem with chainsaws is that it's very easy to injure yourself. These are the 1994 statistics from the US Product Safety Commission. I'm assuming these are individual incidents, probably without repeats, but you never really know. And so the problem with doing anything that might be a little bit dangerous is that first impressions matter. And as some of you maybe have known about MongoDB for a while, for some of you it's a newer thing, but MongoDB 1.0 came out August 27th, 2009. And there were some choices made back then that really have kind of like set the tone for people's early impressions of MongoDB. So for instance, there was no write confirmation. Things were really fast. Could you just write at the database? It didn't need to tell you if it got it or not. You just send it off there. There was no journal. There was a global lock. And so these early impressions sort of led people to think, well, gee, maybe MongoDB has some safety problems. Well, coincidentally, 5 days earlier, Perl 5.10.1 came out. And for people who may think back to 5.10.1, particularly people in the tool chain and the core, let's be honest, there were some decisions in 5.10 that we still regret, right? Smart Match, this was the version 2 of Smart Match. Are we on to version 3 now? I'm losing track. And version objects, which if I had a working time machine DeLorean, I would go back and get rid of. So the point I'm trying to make here is that 2009 is not 2018, and that our past impressions are not always the same as current reality. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what's changed and kind of walk through Perl and MongoDB in sync. So in 2010, we got 5.12 and a couple versions of Mongo. On the Perl side, we got implicit strictures, and we were Y2038 safe. And on the MongoDB side, we got replica sets, sharding, and write confirm, at least to a primary node of a replica set. 2011, we got non-destructive substitution, one of my favorite features, and we stopped clobbering the error variable in destroy. MongoDB added a journal, finally, and write confirmation now to a majority of nodes in the replica set so something doesn't roll back. I've lumped together the next 2 years, and frankly, these are kind of boring, and this is a lightning talk, so I'm just going to kind of skip over those. 2014, things started to get really, really interesting, particularly for me. So Perl 5.20 added subroutine signatures and postfix dereferencing, both experimental, but we had those, hooray. And MongoDB finally hired a world-class Perl engineer. 2015 was again a pretty significant year. Perl doubled down on punctuation operators, all of which designed actually to improve safety. And MongoDB acquired a company called Wired Tiger. Wired Tiger was a general purpose database storage engine. The founders were these two people, and if you don't know them, who they are, you probably have used some of their stuff. So the guy on the left is Keith Bostic. He's one of the inventors of Berkeley DB. The guy on the right is Michael Cahill. He's the guy who invented snapshot isolation. So if anybody has ever used Postgres with snapshot isolation mode, it's based on his PhD dissertation. So with the acquisition of a general purpose storage engine written by people who really know how to do this stuff, MongoDB added a lot of stuff in version 3 in 2015. So we have the storage engine, document level locking, large replica sets, new authentication mechanisms, raft consensus, blah, blah, blah. Lots of other stuff that got added on the basis of this foundation. Jump ahead a couple more years, and again, I'll stick this together for the sake of time. We got no dot in at inc for Perl, again for safety. We got ref aliasing. MongoDB piled on a whole bunch more features, linearizable reads. So it could finally pass the Jepsen test. Anyone know the Jepsen torture test for distributed applications? It's basically like simulates network splits. We actually run that in our continuous integration environment for MongoDB, and it passes. A whole bunch of other features, defaulting to local host only binding. So when you fire up a server on your cloud provider, you don't open up your database to the world. That's kind of nice. 2018 adds, we're going to get 5.28 anytime soon now, right, Sawyer? Yes. Anytime soon? At the conference or after the conference?
Hopefully by end of the week.
Okay. And MongoDB 4.0 is going to drop. Perl gives us delete on slices and a safer Perl-I, and MongoDB gets on ACID. For the first time, the long-awaited feature that people have wanted, Multi-document ACID transactions will be available. Some other security features that you probably won't even notice if you're so excited about ACID transactions. So my point is 2009 is not 2018. Perl 510 is not Perl 528. MongoDB 1 is not MongoDB 4. Past impressions do not reflect current reality. So if your impressions of either Perl or MongoDB are based on the past, I encourage you to update your point of view to the present. And with that, I will simply say, happy juggling.